Let's get one thing straight. Spaghetti westerns didn't just rewrite the rules. They burned the whole saloon down and built something wild, weird, and unforgettable from the ashes. How did a handful of Italian directors and international misfits outgun Hollywood at its own game? Which films still echo through pop culture, influencing everything from Tarantino flicks to hip-hop videos? And, let's be honest, are you ready to see which gunslinger actually takes the gold this time? Stick around. The surprises are anything but over. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, 1966. If you think westerns peaked with John Wayne, think again. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is the film that didn't just kick down the saloon doors. It blew them clean off the hinges with a cannon blast. Sergio Leone's magnum opus is a three-way duel of greed, betrayal, and survival set against the backdrop of a civil war so grimy you can practically smell the gunpowder. Clint Eastwood, Lee Van Cleef, and Eli Wallach don't just act. They carve their names into cinematic legend as Blondie, Angel Eyes, and Tuco, each more ruthless and captivating than the last. But it's not just the cast. This film is style. Ennio Morricone's score is the sound of a showdown at the end of the world, all howling winds and church bells, so iconic it's been sampled everywhere, from Metallica concerts to car commercials. Leone's camera turns dust and sweat into poetry, and every standoff is a masterclass in tension. And that graveyard finale, forget the shootouts you've seen. This is cinema's ultimate standoff, a ballet of nerves and nerves alone. Critics called it excessive and violent when it dropped, but decades later, it's crowned not only the king of spaghetti westerns, but one of the greatest films ever made. Everyone from Quentin Tarantino to Robert Rodriguez tips their hat to it. The wildest part, it still feels dangerous decades later. This isn't just a movie, it's a bullet with your name on it. Once Upon a Time in the West, 1968. If The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is the genre's wild child, Once Upon a Time in the West is its haunted masterpiece, an elegy disguised as a revenge epic. Sergio Leone swore he was done with westerns, but Paramount flashed a stack of cash and the promise of Henry Fonda as a villain. The result? A film that plays like a myth written in blood and dust, every frame soaked in foreboding. From the first scene, a wordless sweat-soaked standoff at a train station, you know you're not in Kansas or even Hollywood anymore. Charles Bronson's harmonica-wielding anti-hero stalks the landscape like a ghost. Claudia Cardinale's widow fights for her future. And Henry Fonda, that all-American icon, flips his image so completely you might forget you ever trusted him. Leone lingers on faces, silence, and shadows, building tension until even a glass of water becomes a loaded gun. Morricone's score is so melancholy and operatic that it could make a coyote cry. Every character is tangled in motives, betrayals, and past sins. The railroad isn't just steel, it's progress rolling over people's lives. Critics were divided at first, but cinephiles knew. This was art, not just entertainment. Today, filmmakers like Martin Scorsese and George Lucas call it required viewing. The genre never looked so epic, so tragic, or so beautiful. For a few dollars, more 1965. Sequels rarely outdraw the original, but for a few dollars. More didn't just keep pace, it lapped the field. Sergio Leone and Clint Eastwood team up again, this time adding Lee Van Cleef to the mix for a double dose of cool. The plot is deceptively simple. Two bounty hunters, one steely, one grizzled, chase the same ruthless outlaw. What starts as a rivalry turns into an uneasy partnership, and the stakes get personal, fast. The brilliance here is in the details. Eastwood's man, with no name, is all squint and swagger, but Van Cleef's Colonel Mortimer, he's driven by old wounds, out for vengeance as much as justice. The tension between them is pure dynamite, until they're forced to unite against a villain even nastier than they are. Leone lets the action breathe, stretching standoffs until your nerves snap. Every showdown feels like a game of chess played with 6 shooters. Morricone's music once again steals the show, mixing chimes, whistles, and gunfire into something both playful and menacing. The film ups the ante with wild editing, kinetic shootouts, and a plot that ties every revenge into a neat, bloody bow. For a few dollars more isn't just a sequel, it's the film that proved spaghetti westerns could do it all: tension, humor, tragedy, and style. And let's be real, few films ever looked this cool doing it. A Fistful of Dollars, 1964. Before Clint Eastwood was an icon, before Sergio Leone was a legend, there was A Fistful of Dollars, the film that lit the fuse. With a plot borrowed from Kurosawa's Yojimbo, Leone drops Eastwood's poncho-clad drifter into a town ruled by two warring gangs and lets chaos do the rest. What makes this movie special? Its pure attitude, cold, cynical, and dripping with style. Eastwood's man. With no name isn't a hero. He's a survivor, playing both sides for profit and letting violence settle every score. In Hollywood westerns, the white hat always won, but Leone spits in the face of that tradition. His anti-hero breaks the rules, and the audience loves him for it. The violence is raw, the stakes are real, and every line is delivered with a squint and a sneer. The film's impact was seismic. It kicked off the spaghetti western craze, made Eastwood a global star, and inspired countless knockoffs, homages, and imitations. Morricone's score, whistling, chanting, and jangling, is instantly recognizable, setting the tone for a whole generation of westerns. Critics might have scoffed at first, but moviegoers knew better. A Fistful of Dollars is the root of the whole mythos, the movie that made the West wild again. The Great Silence, 1968. If most westerns are sun-bleached and hot, The Great Silence is an ice-cold bullet to the heart. Sergio Corbucci's masterpiece is set in the blizzard-stricken mountains of Utah, turning the genre's heat into chilling suspense. Jean-Louis Trintignant plays Silence, a mute gunslinger haunted by his past, who takes the side of outlaws hunted for profit by the ruthless bounty hunter Loco, brought to life by Klaus Kinski's sinister intensity. This isn't your dad's western. Heroes don't ride off into sunsets. Corbucci uses snow and silence as weapons, making every gunshot echo like the end of the world. The film's political edge is razor-sharp, questioning the morality of lawmen and the brutality of frontier justice. Every character is stained by survival, and the film never lets you relax. The ending? Brutal, shocking, and decades ahead of its time. Critics hated it, then rediscovered it as a lost classic. Morricone's score is icy and hypnotic, adding tragedy to every frame. The Great Silence isn't just a western, it's a bleak meditation on hope and cruelty. A film that dares you to look away and proves that sometimes silence is the loudest scream in the room. Django, 1966. Long before Tarantino borrowed the name, Django was dragging a coffin through the mud, changing spaghetti westerns forever. Sergio Corbucci's infamous 1966 shocker stars Franco Nero as the gunslinger with a haunted past, caught in a deadly feud between racist ex-Confederates and Mexican bandits. The film's violence is legendary. At its release, it was banned in several countries for being too brutal. But Django isn't just about body counts. It's about survival, dignity, and revenge at any cost. Franco Nero's performance is all cool rage and smoldering pain. The film's muddy, rain-soaked landscapes are as iconic as any sun-drenched desert. Corbucci gleefully shreds the old Western playbook. Here, everyone's an outlaw, and the hero is only slightly less doomed than his enemies. The soundtrack is instantly recognizable, a melancholy ballad that's been sampled, remixed, and paid tribute in pop culture for decades. Django's coffin isn't just a prop, it's a statement. In this world, there are no clean slates. Over 30 unofficial sequels followed, but none matched the raw power of the original. For anyone who thinks westerns are too safe, Django is proof they can still leave scars. A Fistful of Dynamite. Duck, You Sucker, 1971. Talk about overlooked masterpieces. A Fistful of Dynamite, aka Duck, You Sucker, is Sergio Leone's wildest, weirdest epic. Set during the Mexican Revolution, it teams up Rod Steiger's scuzzy outlaw with James Coburn's dynamite-wielding Irish revolutionary. The tone flips from black comedy to tragedy on a dime, but beneath the explosions, Leone crafts a story about friendship, betrayal, and the price of rebellion. This film was the awkward middle child between Leone's two operatic epics, and it's criminally underrated. Where other westerns are about lone wolves, this is a buddy movie with a body count. Steiger and Coburn spark off each other, constantly outwitting their enemies, and sometimes themselves. The film's action sequences are pure dynamite, literally featuring train heists, betrayals, and enough gunpowder to flatten a small town. Morricone's score goes from playful to heart-wrenching, underscoring the chaos and heartbreak of revolution. For years, critics didn't know what to make of it, but today, A Fistful of Dynamite stands as a chaotic, exhilarating, and genuinely moving ride. If you want a western with grit, laughs, and more explosions than sense, you just found it. They Call Me Trinity, 1970. If spaghetti westerns are known for their grit, They Call Me Trinity throws in a haymaker of slapstick and heart. Enzo Barboni's 1970 classic stars, Terence Hill and Bud Spencer as the laziest, hungriest, and most unlikely heroes in the West. Hill's Trinity is so laid back he could nap through a gunfight, while Spencer's Bambino grumbles his way through every showdown. Together, they defend a Mormon settlement from bandits and greedy land grabbers, and crack jokes the whole time. This wasn't the first pairing for Hill and Spencer, but it's the film that made them international icons. The plot is classic Western, but every cliché gets flipped, spoofed, or punched in the face. Fights break out in dining halls, gunfights turn into food fights, and through it all, the chemistry between the two leads is electric. The film was a smash hit in Europe, outgrossing even the Dollars trilogy in places like Spain. Its success spawned sequels, imitators, and a whole new wave of comedic westerns. For anyone who thinks the genre is all grit and no giggles, They Call Me Trinity is proof that sometimes the fastest gun in the West is also the funniest. My Name is Nobody, 1973. What happens when the spaghetti western decides to have a little fun with itself? You get My Name is Nobody, a meta-western that's equal parts tribute and parody. Conceived by Sergio Leone and officially directed by Tonino Valeri, this 1973 film pairs Terence Hill's mischievous nobody with Henry Fonda's weary legend Jack Beauregard. Fonda, playing against type, is a gunslinger looking for peace until nobody insists he go out in a blaze of glory. This movie's tone is playful but affectionate, blending slapstick, stunts, and genuine emotion. Hill's Nobody is a living cartoon, fast on the draw, quicker with a prank. Fonda brings gravitas, anchoring the film with a performance that's both sly and moving. The film pokes fun at spaghetti western tropes, even as it delivers some of the best shootouts in the business. Morricone's score is as whimsical as the action, mixing banjos, whistling, and even a bit of circus flair. My Name is Nobody isn't just a comedy. It's a love letter to the genre, a wink and a nod to everything that came before. For fans, it's a reminder that the West is big enough for laughs, tears, and legends. Companeros, 1970. What do you get when you throw together a Swedish arms dealer, a Mexican peasant, a rebel leader, and a stoned Jack Palance? You get Companeros, Sergio Corbucci's wild, anarchic buddy adventure that's as much political satire as Western. Franco Nero and Thomas Milian headline as mismatched allies roped into a revolution, with betrayals, double crosses, and gunfights around every corner. The film balances zany humor with razor-sharp political commentary, lampooning revolution even as it celebrates it. Milian's peasant is all swagger and heart, while Nero's arms dealer would sell out his own shadow for a profit. The dynamic is pure chaos, fistfights 1 minute, heartfelt speeches the next. And then there's Jack Palance, who chews scenery as a one-handed villain with a pet falcon and a deep hatred of baths. Morricone's soundtrack is a rollicking, irresistible march that sticks in your head long after the credits roll. Companeros might not have the gravitas of Leone's epics, but it makes up for it with pure, unfiltered energy. If you want a spaghetti western that refuses to take sides, or itself, too seriously, saddle up for this one. Death Rides a Horse, 1967. Revenge isn't just a theme in spaghetti westerns, it's an art form. Death Rides a Horse perfects that art. With Lee Van Cleef mentoring John Philip Law in a tale of blood debts and old wounds. The story opens with a brutal massacre and grows into a twisted partnership, the young gunslinger out for vengeance, and the older outlaw with his own scores to settle. Director Giulio Petroni turns every confrontation into a slow-burn masterclass in suspense. Van Cleef is a magnetic presence, balancing fatherly advice with icy resolve. The film's villains are memorably evil, and every twist lands with impact. What sets this apart is the psychology, the way violence scars its survivors, and how vengeance consumes both the hunter and the hunted. Morricone's score, as always, elevates the drama, making every standoff feel like destiny. Death Rides a Horse isn't as flashy as some entries, but it's pure spaghetti western DNA, hard, fast, and unforgettable. Day of Anger, 1967. Mentor-pupil. Westerns are a dime a dozen, but Day of Anger might be the meanest, sharpest of them all. Giuliano Gemma is Scott, a bullied stable boy who learns the art of violence from Lee Van Cleef's world-weary Frank Talby. As Scott rises, the student soon surpasses the master, and what starts as hero worship turns into a deadly game of power and pride. Tonino Valeri directs with an eye for grit and grandeur. Duels unfold in the sun-baked dust, every shot ringing with meaning. Gemma's transformation from innocent to anti-hero is handled with surprising depth, while Van Cleef brings menace and wisdom to every scene. The town itself is almost a character, its shifting loyalties and dusty streets a microcosm for the genre's harsh morality. Day of Anger packs emotional punch and delivers some of the best shootouts in Italian Western history. It's a brutal coming-of-age story, where growing up means picking up a gun, and learning there's always someone faster on the draw. Sabata, 1969. If you like your westerns with a side of circus and a dash of Bond, Sabata is your ticket. Gianfranco Parolini's wild 1969 film stars Lee Van Cleef as the titular anti-hero, part gunslinger, part trickster, all swagger. Sabata isn't just quick on the draw. He's a master of gadgets, traps, and showmanship, outsmarting his enemies as often as he outshoots them. The film's plot is pure comic book. Sabata uncovers a plot to steal army gold, battling corrupt officials, acrobatic assassins, and a host of bizarre villains. Every action scene is dialed up to 11, with booby-trapped hats, acrobat sidekicks, and a sense of fun that's infectious. It's spaghetti western as pop art, gleefully over the top and impossible to take too seriously. The success of Sabata spawned sequels and imitators, but nothing matched the original's wit and energy. If the Dollars trilogy is the genre's Shakespeare, Sabata is its comic book, loud, colorful, and absolutely irresistible. The Big Gundown, 1966. Few films blend politics and action like The Big Gundown. Sergio Solima's 1966 gem puts Lee Van Cleef's relentless bounty hunter on the trail of Thomas Million's clever, charismatic outlaw. What begins as a manhunt quickly becomes a chase across a corrupt, unforgiving West, full of betrayals and shifting loyalties. This is a thinking person's Western, tackling issues like justice, prejudice, and the power of the law without skimping on action. Million's Cuchillo is one of the genre's great characters, slippery, unpredictable, and oddly likable. The film builds to a legendary final duel, every bullet carrying the weight of everything that came before. Morricone's music is, once again, unforgettable, with whistling, chanting, and percussion that make every scene pulse. The Big Gundown stands as one of the most thrilling, thoughtful, and rewarding spaghetti westerns ever made. If you want proof, the genre can fire on all. There you have it, 14 bullets, each one a legend. Spaghetti westerns didn't just change movies, they changed the way we see outlaws, justice, and even ourselves. So, which film on this list would you draw for in a duel? Did we miss your favorite, or would you swap the order? Hit those comments and let's argue like it's high noon. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell after all. The Wild West never really ends, and neither do the stories.